Alex Mercer was already running late when he saw the purse snatch. He was holding his 6-year-old daughter's hand, weaving through the busy downtown sidewalk as they rushed toward the bus stop. Nia's kindergarten art project was clutched under her arm, a mess of glitter and glue, and Alex's work boots were still dusty from the early morning shift he'd barely finished. But when he caught a flash of movement, someone yanking a purse off a woman's shoulder and dashing into the street, he didn't hesitate. "Stay right here," he told Nia, parking her behind a hot dog cart. "Daddy." "I'll be back in 2 seconds, baby. Don't move." The thief tore down the sidewalk, shoving past people. The woman who'd been robbed froze in shock, her eyes wide. Alex didn't even look at her. He sprinted. "Hey, drop it," he yelled, his boots pounding the pavement. The man zig-zagged through traffic, but Alex had been a track star once, back in high school. Before everything went sideways, before his wife passed, before he had to raise Nia alone, before the factory job and overdue bills. He caught up to the guy near the corner of 5th and Main, tackled him to the concrete. The purse flew into the gutter. The thief swung at him, but Alex pinned his arm and growled, "Try it again, and I'll break your wrist." People started watching. Someone called the cops. By the time the police arrived, the woman had caught up, breathless in her heels, her sleek black coat fluttering in the breeze. "Is that my purse?" she asked, stunned. Alex stood, brushing blood off his knuckles. "Yeah, he almost got away with it." The officer nodded in approval. "We'll take it from here." Alex turned back to Nia, who was still waiting patiently, her little face lit up when she saw him. She ran into his arms. "Daddy, are you okay?" "Yay, pumpkin, just got a little scuffed up. Let's go." But the woman didn't let him walk away. "Wait," her voice was calm but commanding. "You tackled someone for a stranger's purse. Why?" He shrugged, because it was the right thing to do. She looked at him like she was trying to figure him out. "You're bleeding." "I'll live." Then she glanced down at the little girl clinging to his hand. "Your daughter." "Yeah, sorry again for the scare. Glad you got your stuff back." He turned to leave, but she stepped in front of him. "Wait, what's your name?" He hesitated. "Alex Mercer." "I'm Phoebe Bennett." She held out a manicured hand. He shook it, feeling like his calloused fingers didn't belong against her perfect skin. "Thank you, Alex," she said, eyes steady on his. "You didn't have to do that, but you did. That means something." "It's no big deal." "It is to me." He blinked, unsure how to answer that. Then Nia tugged his hand. "Daddy, we're gonna miss the bus." Phoebe's eyes darted to the stop down the street, then back to him. "Where are you headed?" "Home, out in East Side." "Let me give you a ride." Alex laughed, shaking his head. "No offense, but you don't look like someone who's ever even been to East Side." "I have a car. It's the least I can do." He hesitated, then looked at Nia, who was clearly exhausted. He sighed. "All right, just this once." The car wasn't just a car. It was a black Mercedes with leather seats and a driver who opened the door for them. Phoebe sat in the front. "East Side, please," she told the driver, then turned back to Alex. "You're not going to ask what to do?" she asked. He glanced at her tailored coat, her diamond earrings, the way the driver called her Ms. Bennett. "I'm guessing you're not a waitress." She laughed. "No, I run a tech firm, CEO of Bennett Dynamics." Alex blinked. "Wait, that's the one with the smart medical devices." She smiled. "You've heard of us." "Yeah, my buddy's kid has one of those insulin monitors." "That's you. You make those." "I founded the company 10 years ago." He looked at her differently then, but she didn't seem to notice. Or maybe she did, and she didn't care. When they pulled up to the tiny apartment building, Phoebe stepped out too. "You don't have to." I want to. He unlocked the door with one hand while Nia ran inside. Sorry about the mess. She stepped in and took it all in the peeling paint, the second-hand furniture, the little drawings taped to the fridge. It's nice, she said softly. You're doing a good job. Alex rubbed the back of his neck. I'm trying. Then she reached into her purse and pulled out a card. I want to take you both to dinner, tomorrow night. He stared at the card. Why? Because I like to say thank you properly, and because I want to see you again. Alex blinked. You do. She smiled. Yes, and don't say no. I don't get told no very often. He laughed at that and finally took the card. All right, deal. As she left, he stood at the window and watched the Mercedes disappear around the corner. Nia tugged his sleeve. Daddy, is that lady your friend? Alex smiled. Maybe. And for the first time in a long time, hope stirred in his chest. The restaurant Phoebe chose wasn't just upscale, it looked like it had been carved from glass and gold. A valet in a navy blazer opened the door for them, while chandeliers glittered through the windows like stars frozen mid-fall. Alex adjusted the collar of the only button-down shirt he owned, his jaw tight as he stepped out of the cab with Nia's small hand tucked in his. She wore a purple dress that still had the price tag dangling beneath the hem he'd bought it that morning, stretching what was left of his paycheck. He'd skipped lunch to afford it. Phoebe was already waiting just inside, speaking quietly to the hostess. The moment she spotted them, she walked over, her heels silent on the marble floor. The dress she wore shimmered faintly in the light, elegant but understated. You made it, she said, her expression softening as she glanced at Nia. And you look beautiful. Nia hid behind Alex's leg, whispering, Thank you. Phoebe crouched slightly, lowering her voice. Would you like to sit by the window? There's a big koi pond outside. Nia peeked out, then nodded. Phoebe led them to a corner table with a view of the water and a tree that glowed from beneath with soft amber lights. A waiter pulled out their chairs and handed them leather-bound menus. Alex barely opened his before setting it down. I'll just have whatever's simplest, he said, and a lemonade for her. Phoebe rested her chin on her hand. Don't worry about the price. I invited you. I'm not worried, he said, his voice dry. I just don't know what half of these words mean. She laughed, and the sound was gentler than he expected. I'll order for all of us if you trust me. He nodded, and she rattled off something in French to the waiter before turning back to him. So, what do you actually do, Alex, besides chasing down criminals on sidewalks? I work maintenance at a packaging plant, he said, folding his hands on the table. Mostly machines, some plumbing, whatever breaks. Do you like it? He gave a half shrug. It pays, not enough, but it pays. Her eyes flicked to Nia, who was now watching the fish outside with her nose pressed to the glass. And her mom. He paused, passed away 4 years ago, car accident. Phoebe didn't offer sympathy. She just gave him a look that said she understood why he said it so plainly. You've been raising her by yourself. Yeah, it's a lot of scrambling. I have a neighbor who watches her when I have late shifts. We get by. She was quiet for a moment, studying him like she was reading a page only she could see. Then she leaned back. You stopped smiling the second we walked in. I didn't realize I was supposed to be performing. You're uncomfortable. He met her gaze. This isn't my world. Do you think I care about that? He didn't answer. The food arrived, delicate plates with sauces painted like art, and somehow, Nia had already figured out how to use the tiny spoon for her dessert. Phoebe poured water into his glass herself, and for a moment, he just watched her hands, graceful and precise. So what's the catch? He asked finally. Phoebe tilted her head. Catch. You're a CEO. You've probably got board meetings and investors and whatever else rich people do. Why are you sitting here with a guy who hasn't had a proper day off in 3 months? Her lips parted slightly, then curved into something thoughtful. Because you didn't ask anything from me, you didn't hesitate, you didn't expect recognition or reward. That's rare in my world. I'm not a project, he said, his voice low. I'm not trying to fix you, Alex. Then what are you doing? I'm trying to get to know you, if that's something you'll let me do. He looked at her for a long beat, then nodded once. All right, ask something. She smiled. What's the last thing that made you laugh so hard you couldn't breathe? He blinked, caught off guard. That's random. I like random. He thought for a moment. Nia told me I snore like a dragon falling down the stairs. She drew a picture of it. The dragon had my haircut. Phoebe laughed, and it wasn't polished or polite, it was real, unguarded. I want to see that drawing. Maybe next time, he said, almost smiling. The words hung between them. After dinner, outside beneath the street lamps, Phoebe knelt and helped Nia zip up her coat. Thank you for letting me steal a bit of your evening, she said, gently. Are you going to be our new friend? Nia asked. Phoebe glanced up at Alex, then back at Nia. I hope so. Alex watched as the valet brought her car around. The driver opened the door, but Phoebe didn't get in right away. She turned to him. I'm hosting a charity event next week. Black tie. It's for children's hospitals, something close to my heart. I'd like you to come. He shook his head immediately. That's not my scene. I'll send a car and a suit. He narrowed his eyes. You don't even know if I own a tie. I do now, she said, stepping into the car. That's why I'm sending one. The door closed before he could answer. As the car pulled away, Nia looked up at him and said, Are we going to the fancy party? He exhaled slowly, watching the taillights disappear. Looks like we are. Alex had never worn anything that required cufflinks before. The suit had arrived 2 days ahead of the event, delivered in a box with his name printed in gold on the tag. It came with a note in smooth, formal handwriting. No excuses. See you Saturday. Phoebe. Underneath the jacket lay a pressed white shirt, a black silk tie, and a pair of shiny leather shoes that made him feel like he was stepping into someone else's life. He didn't know what to expect when the car pulled up to his building that evening. Nia stood beside him in a borrowed dress from their neighbor, her braids freshly done and her eyes wide as the driver opened the door. You look like a movie star, she whispered as he adjusted his tie, which he'd spent 20 frustrating minutes learning to knot from a tutorial. I feel like a guy pretending to be a movie star, he muttered. The venue was a historic art museum turned event space, the kind of place people rented for galas and million-dollar fundraisers. When they stepped inside, music floated through the air, low jazz, elegant and smooth, and the lighting was warm, casting everything in soft gold. A woman offered him champagne. He declined, holding Nia's hand a little tighter as they walked past sculptures and polished stone floors. The guests shimmered in gowns and tailored tuxedos, and more than one person glanced curiously at him as they passed. Then he saw her. Phoebe stood near the center of the atrium, speaking to a man in a velvet jacket. Her dress was navy blue this time, structured and sleek, her hair swept up with small diamond pins that caught the light when she turned. She saw them instantly. I was starting to think you'd changed your mind, she said as they approached. I almost did, Alex admitted, but Nia told me I'd regret it. Phoebe crouched to Nia's level. You were right. Nia beamed. Phoebe straightened and looked at Alex. You clean up well. Thanks, I almost passed out trying to get the tie right. She laughed. You look good. A waiter passed with a tray of hors d'oeuvres, and Phoebe gestured toward a nearby table. Would she like something to eat? There's a quiet lounge in the back with a nanny I've hired for the other kids. It's safe, and they've got movies and snacks. Alex knelt beside Nia. You okay if I check in later? She nodded, already eyeing the glittering cookies on a tray near the lounge entrance. Phoebe led him through the crowd once Nia was settled, her hand lightly brushing his arm. I want to introduce you to someone. They stopped beside an older woman with silver hair and sharp eyes. This is Margaret Cho, director of the Children's Cardiac Initiative. Margaret, this is Alex Mercer. Margaret offered her hand. You're the man who tackled a thief for Phoebe. I've heard all about it. I didn't realize it was headline-worthy, Alex said, shaking her hand. It shows character, Margaret said. That matters more than you think in this room. Phoebe leaned in slightly. Margaret's the reason I started the pediatric wing in the first place. Margaret smiled before drifting off to speak with a group by the bar. Alex turned to Phoebe. You tell everyone about that day. Only the ones who matter. He looked around. You really know everyone here. Not everyone, just the ones who write the checks. She started walking again, and he followed her toward a quieter balcony overlooking the sculpture garden. The breeze was cool but not cold, and for a moment, the noise of the party faded. You're not what I expected, she said, her voice softer now. Let me guess, you thought I'd show up in a baseball cap and talk about spark plugs. I thought you'd say no to all of this. I almost did. So why didn't you? He paused, considering. Because when I told Nia about the party, the first thing she asked was if you'd be there. Phoebe's eyes flickered. She's smart. She is, and she doesn't warm up to people fast, but she likes you. I like her too. He studied her face. What is this, Phoebe? What are we doing? I haven't decided yet, she said honestly, but I don't want it to end. The honesty in her words knocked something loose in his chest. They stood there in silence for a moment, the city lights glowing beyond the trees. Then a man in a suit with a wireless earpiece approached. Ms. Bennett, the auction's about to start. They're waiting on you. She nodded, then turned to Alex. Come with me. The ballroom had transformed while they were gone. A grand stage had been set, and Phoebe climbed it with ease, taking the mic with the poise of someone used to being watched. Alex found a quiet spot near the back, his hands in his pockets. Phoebe's voice carried through the room as she spoke about children's access to medical technology, about hope and innovation, about the importance of action over words. She told a story about a little girl who'd received one of their earliest devices and went on to run her first 5K. Then, to Alex's surprise, she said, and sometimes heroes come in unexpected forms, like a father who doesn't hesitate to protect someone he doesn't know, even when it costs him something. That's the kind of person I want beside me in this work. She didn't say his name, she didn't need to. Half the room turned and glanced toward him. Afterward, she found him near the side entrance, her heels quiet on the marble. You didn't run, she said. I thought about it. Did I embarrass you? No, he said slowly. I'm not used to being seen. Well, get used to it, she said, because I'm not going anywhere. He looked at her then, really looked, and something shifted behind his eyes. Neither am I. The first snow of the season fell 3 days after the gala. It dusted the city in white, softening the hard edges of rooftops and traffic noise. Alex stood at the window of his apartment, watching flakes drift past the street lamp, still wearing the navy wool coat Phoebe had insisted he take home that night. He hadn't returned it. He hadn't wanted to. Nia was curled on the couch, her head on a pillow, a picture book open but forgotten beside her. She had fallen asleep halfway through a story. Alex pulled the blanket up over her and checked the time. It was nearly 9. He turned back to the window. His phone buzzed on the counter, and he answered on the second ring. "You're home," Phoebe said. "Yeah, Nia's out cold." "I figured. Did she like the snow globe?" "She hasn't let go of it since she opened the box. I think you're officially her favorite person." There was a pause on the other end, then Phoebe said, "I'd like to see you. Tonight." Alex glanced toward the couch, then softened his voice. "I can't leave her alone." "I know, that's why I sent a car. Annie's with the driver. She's one of our corporate nannies, fully vetted, background checked, and she's brought hot cocoa." He blinked. "You knew I'd say no." "I hoped you'd say yes if I made it easier." He hesitated, then said, "Give me 5 minutes." The car was waiting by the curb, its engine humming beneath a thin layer of snow. Annie greeted him with a warm smile and a wrapped thermos. Nia stirred only slightly when he tucked her in, and Annie gave him a reassuring nod before he slipped out. The ride wasn't long, but the city looked different under snow, cleaner, quieter, like it had paused to take a breath. When the car stopped, Alex stepped out in front of a tall brick building with iron balconies and arched windows. A doorman opened the entrance without a word. The elevator took him to the top floor. Phoebe opened the door before he could knock. She was barefoot, wearing jeans and a sweater too big for her shoulders, her hair loose for the first time he'd ever seen it. Behind her, the penthouse stretched wide and warm, filled with soft light and the scent of something baking. "I didn't know what you liked," she said, stepping aside, "so I made 3 kinds of cookies." Alex raised an eyebrow as he walked in. 3. She led him to the kitchen, where trays of cooling cookies sat beside mugs and a bottle of cinnamon liqueur. "I get restless when I'm nervous," she said, setting a plate in front of him. "What are you nervous about?" She leaned on the counter, watching him. "You." He laughed under his breath. "Why?" "Because I don't usually invite anyone here, because you matter more than I planned, and because I'm not used to feeling like I don't have the upper hand." Alex took a bite of the cookie. "You really think you don't?" Phoebe walked around the island slowly, then stopped in front of him. "Tell me what you're thinking." "I'm thinking this is the best cookie I've ever had." She rolled her eyes and took the plate from him. "Try again." He looked at her, really looked, the way he hadn't let himself before. "I'm thinking, I don't know what this is, but I've never wanted to figure something out so badly." Her breath caught just slightly. "Then let me make it simple." She kissed him. It wasn't rehearsed or careful, it was real. A little uncertain, a little reckless, and it was everything he didn't know he'd been waiting for. When they pulled apart, he rested his forehead against hers. "This is crazy." "It is," she whispered, "but it's also completely right." He traced the edge of her jaw with his thumb. "I don't have $1 million life. I've got duct-taped furniture and a daughter who still sleeps with a stuffed panda." "I don't want $1 million life," she said. "I want a life that's real. Something I can trust. Someone who doesn't care how many zeros I have in my account." He stepped back just enough to breathe. "This isn't going to be simple." "I don't want simple." She looked at him steadily. "I want you." The words settled in the quiet between them, not rushed, not dramatic, just true. Alex glanced around the room. "You baked 3 kinds of cookies, and you have a fireplace that turns on with a remote, and I still feel more at home here than I've felt in years." Phoebe reached for the remote and pointed it at the marble hearth. A flick of flame lit the room in soft gold. She took his hand. "Then don't leave." He smiled, not the guarded kind he gave to the rest of the world, but the one that only Nia had seen until now. "I wasn't planning to." The next morning, he woke up to the smell of coffee and the sound of Nia's laugh echoing from the kitchen. Phoebe had made pancakes shaped like stars, and Nia was wearing one of her old university sweatshirts like a dress, her tiny legs swinging from the bar stool. When she saw him, she grinned. "Daddy, Phoebe made breakfast." Phoebe turned, a spatula in one hand, "And I only burned 2. He walked over and kissed the top of Nia's head, then kissed Phoebe's cheek. "We should probably talk about what this is." Phoebe looked at him. "It's a family, that's what this is." And for the first time in years, Alex believed it. All of it. The quiet mornings, the laughter, the idea that maybe he didn't have to survive alone anymore. That somehow, by chance and courage and timing, he'd found something extraordinary. Not because he went looking for it, but because he did the right thing, unaware it would change everything. He reached for Phoebe's hand across the counter. "Then let's build it," he said, "together." She nodded, eyes shining. And just like that, the past no longer felt so heavy. The future had already begun. Alex stood in the middle of Phoebe's office, staring out the floor-to-ceiling window at the skyline. It was nearly dusk, and the city glowed like it had been dipped in copper. Behind him, the low hum of her voice carried as she finished a call in the adjacent room, her tone firm, clipped CEO mode. He'd never seen this side of her, not fully. But now, watching her through the glass wall, barefoot again with her jacket tossed over a chair, her sleeves rolled up to her elbows as she negotiated a product launch delay without flinching, he realized something. He didn't feel out of place here anymore. Phoebe ended the call, dropped her phone onto the desk, and walked toward him, rubbing the back of her neck. "That was the European supplier," she said. "They want to renegotiate the timeline again." "You going to let them?" "I'll fly out tomorrow. Their CFO respects face-to-face pressure." He turned to her. "Do you want me to come?" She raised an eyebrow, surprised. "You'd be okay leaving Nia for 2 days?" "I talked to Mrs. Callahan upstairs. She said she'd stay with her while we're gone. Nia already packed a bag." Phoebe leaned against the window beside him. "You've thought this through." "I want to know this part of your life too, not just the quiet moments. I'm used to doing everything alone." "So was I." She let her head rest against his shoulder, the city casting shadows across the floor. "I don't want to keep you on the sidelines," she said, "but I've never had to make room for someone before. Not really." "You don't have to make room, just let me stand beside you." Phoebe tilted her face up to his. "That sounds like a promise." "It is." The next day, they boarded her company jet just after dawn. Alex didn't say a word when the driver took their bags or when a flight attendant handed him a warm towel and espresso. He just glanced out the window and took it all in, grounded despite the altitude. In Paris, Phoebe was unstoppable, direct, brilliant, unapologetic. Alex watched her navigate boardrooms the way she once watched him handle a broken pipe in their apartment, with focused respect. That evening, after a long negotiation that turned in their favor, Phoebe led him through the quiet streets near the Seine. They walked without speaking, the air crisp, the lights low and golden. She stopped under an ivy-covered archway and turned to him. "I've been waiting for the other shoe to drop," she said. "What do you mean?" "For you to realize this is all too much, that I'm too much." He brushed her hair behind her ear. "Too much is exactly what I want." Phoebe reached into her coat pocket and pulled something out, a small velvet box. He blinked. "You're not." "It's not a ring," she said, opening it to reveal a single key. "To my home, our home, if that's something you want." He took the key, turned it slowly in his hand, then looked at her. "I've been carrying a letter in my wallet for over a year," he said. "It's to Nia. I wrote it the night she asked me if we could ever have a real family again. I didn't know how to answer her. Kept the letter in case I ever did." Phoebe's eyes glassed over. "I think I finally have my answer," he said. They flew back 2 days later, stepping into the apartment to find Nia asleep on the couch, surrounded by stuffed animals and a plate of half-eaten cookies. "Mrs." Callahan gave them a tired wave before heading upstairs. Phoebe knelt beside Nia and tucked her in deeper. Alex stood behind her, watching something settle in her shoulders, a stillness he hadn't seen before. Later that week, Phoebe called a meeting with her board and announced she was taking a step back from daily operations. She would remain CEO, but she was delegating more. The shareholders were stunned. She didn't flinch. Afterward, she met Alex and Nia in the park. He was helping Nia fly a kite. "I'm not going to miss another moment," she said when he joined her on the bench. "You really did it." "I did." He reached over and took her hand. "You ever think about doing something bigger with all this? All your resources, your reach?" "I've been thinking about that," she said. "Maybe scholarships for kids from schools like the one Nia goes to, or starting a new fund for single parents. I don't know yet, but I want you to be part of it." "Then I'm in." A few months later, under a canopy of spring blossoms, surrounded by a small group of friends and family, they stood on a hill overlooking the city. Phoebe wore a dress the color of sunrise, and Nia carried the rings. There was no ballroom, no orchestra. Just them, a justice of the peace, and a promise spoken in voices that didn't waver. After the ceremony, Alex knelt in front of Nia and held out his hand. "You okay calling me Dad now?" he asked gently. Nia smiled and wrapped her arms around his neck. "I already do." They danced barefoot in the grass while the sun dipped behind the skyline. No cameras, no press, just the three of them. That night, back at the penthouse, they sat together on the balcony, wrapped in a blanket, watching the lights flick on one by one. Phoebe rested her head on Alex's shoulder. "You know what I never thought I'd have," she whispered. "Peace." He kissed her temple. "You've got it now." She looked up at him, eyes full. "I've got you."